Bulubina, and welcome to Homes of Hope Fiji podcast. And we welcome you and thank you very much for having us in your homes or on your phones. And a big vinakavakaleu to the beautiful people, ladies and gent that is seated here with us today.
Thank you.
It's as you remember, the past few episodes we've just been talking about family. And it's just family and children and speaking words of encouragement to our children. And what I won't forget from the past few episodes is what worked with us then does not work with our children now. So today, what we're going to be talking about, what we'd like to go into is just being good role models in our homes. And I'd love to hear the inputs of the wonderful parents that are seated here today. Auntie Etta, you're being a teacher and being a mom to 6 kids. It's like you said the last time, it's not easy, understanding all the personalities of our children. So help us.
Yeah, thank you, Ini. Just my experience of being a teacher. I realized in the more than 2 decades of having to be with children, I realized that children that come from dysfunctional families do not have big dreams. In the sense they would dream of having a stable home, a good home, where there's no slamming of doors, there's no shouting, where there's love. I realize in the course of my teaching, when we ask children to talk about their dreams, and some would just dream of having a home where there's no shouting and there's a lot of love. That was something that after our last episodes when we had those discussions, that's something that came back to memory. Working in that space with children, they don't have big dreams. Children that come from dysfunctional families, and maybe unless and until these proper interventions. But that was something that remained with me, stuck with me. Yeah, those children. I was able to identify children that come from dysfunctional families. Yeah.
Joshua, as a father, as a dad, most of the time the parenting is done by the mother, and they always say, "Okay, sorry, yeah." In some cases, what's it like for you as a father in trying to set that standard, or trying to be a good role model for your sons?
I mean, it just goes back to how we're raised.
Right.
And here in the Pacific, I think, one of the things when you're raised in a Pacific home, you meet all these kind of behavior. Swearing is constant, and that's normal.
Yes.
It's when you grow up that becomes the norm. So
Yes.
when you have children of your own, it just happens instinctively.
Right.
It's not like, I trained myself to be tough like my dad and I'm gonna do it. It's just I was raised this way and that's how I know how to raise kids.
Right.
So I'm going back on this and I was looking and listening to you and I'm thinking, okay, I do this with my kids. And I'm glad to be here in Homes of Hope and going through all these kinds of awareness, learning now how to be there for my children, not in the present time, but there emotionally. I think we've seen reports from FWCC, the police, on negligence now. It's gone up another level, not what it used to be. And as a father, I'm happy that I'm trying to be there emotionally. I think this time, this is when our kids need it, not when we're growing up. When we were growing up, it was stick and stones will break my bones.
Right.
And that was real. But we can't have that with our children now. I think our children now, they need to be more, there has to be more support emotionally.
Yes. Like I think I said this a few episodes ago. Um, whatever was done to us, we took it. We had to take it. Until now, and working in this space and so many trainings and awareness, and then you realize our parents broke so many laws then. Huh? And it's sad. But now I think and for me, it made me reflect on myself, how I was teaching my children, how I didn't want them, because I know I went to bed crying, I didn't show anybody, but then now I make sure that it doesn't happen. So what would you be able to say to this as a counselor?
Just listening to you all, and I like how you interpret it based on your experience as a parent. And when Josh mentioned something that we grew up with and it became normalized. So you maybe grew up in a family where it's very abusive. The swear words, it's normalized to the point it become a language. And growing up in that family, having a family of your own, and you continue the cycle. And I'm also hearing what Josh said. He's coming to Homes of Hope. We it opened our lenses on the cases, on how we can be a better parent or a better adult for any child or children that we work with. I believe that children, they absorb. They're like sponge, right? So they will do, or their behavior will be sort of like showing the examples that adults. So they lead by examples, right? Adults lead by example, but children absorb that.
Right.
So if a child grows up in the environment where it's normalized to swear or yell, it's sort of like absorbed. Okay, this is how I'm going to treat, irrespective of whether they are in a relationship or their friendship. But if a child grew up in the environment where parents learn to communicate well, because we're talking about creating emotional safety for children. Yeah. And for me, understanding how do we create that, talking about practical examples would be when how do you remain calm when your child is giving you tantrums, right? Because as soon as a child gives tantrums, what do adults do? What do parents or caregiver do? You're right, react. So in those type of reaction, children absorb that like if I do this, I'll get my parents' attentions or the adults by the way that they react to me, right? And we're sort of giving the wrong message to children. Right. Because safety for us would be different, right? Like we said, you all brought up in a different environment. Safety for us would be having maybe a job. Financially safety. At the end of the week, we get paid, we'll be able to buy, groceries and stuff. But for children, it's different. Safety with them would be being able to be present at home. They come home, there's a parent or there's an adult who asks them, oh, how is your day? Being able to have that physical quality time, the physical touch, hug, how is your day, quality time. So these are some of the things that we have been talking about from our last episode. And I believe that having those communication is very important. You're giving the right message, being able to remain calm and go down to the child's level, understanding their language, because one word can mean many things to them. And validating, okay, by observing, my child is sort of feeling sad today. So you go down at their level and said, oh, I noticed that you're feeling sad. Would you like to talk about it? Which we don't. We never grew up with those kind of things, right? So when you feel sad, either you go and be in your space, or you get a whacking because you are silent, right? Without being understood. So that's something for me. It has built, and working at Homes of Hope and doing a lot of learning around trauma and being informed. It's just the importance of how you communicate well with your child. Only then you'll know you're building a bridge between a trust, and they'll be able to come to you with those with anything that they feel that is uncomfortable or comfortable, any subject matter. So that's something I sort of like to talk about in these episodes, the importance of building that clear communications with your children.
And I think it's gotten a bit harder when you've included technology.
Right.
That's
I think everyone now is just taking a step back from being an actual parent and letting technology become the parents.
Right.
I've been, from experience, using the phone to give to my children when I want to take a break, and then they can stay on the phone for hours. And then I've seen when I've taken away the technology from the child, they're unable to handle emotion process when they're angry while they're out.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's for fathers especially, what happens is when we don't treat our children, according to us, that's masculine to swear at them, to be rough at them. If we don't treat our children like that, we think, okay, they'll grow up to be soft.
Yeah.
But then what we don't realize is what we're doing is putting trauma onto them. And I think that's what the best thing about this podcast is we're able to take trauma out for Fiji or for our viewers to be trauma informed, and I think that will help in the long run. How being able to control emotions, controlling emotions in the family, getting the family together. I think that helps.
Like you said, where you've admitted how you've given your phone to your children sometimes, and it's the other way as well. And it's a challenge for working people most of the time, trying to do compartments in your brain where you get home, you're a parent and not a working person, putting everything aside and just most of the time you're just present physically and just sitting there while they're telling you about your day and you're still continuing with work, I've faced that a couple of times where I've forgotten that I'm at home. I've taken it home again. So I've tried to, when I get home, that's it. I don't want to work on anything from here. And I think another thing that what helps in our homes is just setting clear boundaries. And times are not the same as what it was when we were growing up.
Right.
And I think it's very important that in our homes as parents, set the boundaries, set clear boundaries in your families and let your children know what is expected of them.
Exactly. And it's something that we need to understand, that our children learn by example.
Yes.
Yeah. I very much support what has been just shared. As parents, whether you're a working parent or you're a stay-at-home parent, that's something that we need to keep in mind, that children learn by example. So make sure that we model our lives to them.
Yeah.
So what would be some practical examples that we can maybe share with the families on how they can create an emotional safety space at home? For example, one would be being able to be calm when your child is throwing tantrums and, going down to their level. What are some more practical examples? Being attentive, listening, words bring meanings. So it comes word with the different emotions. Also, there can be taking responsibilities. Working with a child, they understand what Ini was talking about, boundaries. So having that understanding of what respect means, validating their emotions. And when they speak, do not stop them, because you never know what stories are they trying to voice out. So these are some of the practical examples that you can do with your families at home. And you can try it. I guarantee you can bring a lot from your child just by using some of those practical ways that you can ensure that you are having that clear communications. I love what Ini mentioned about boundaries, because having boundaries, it helps your child to learn of respect. what respect means. They respect themselves. They be able to respect people around them, and clear instructions because they understand what's their limit as well. These are all safety measures that you can do with your child. Not only it helps them physically to provide them that safety, but it also have a way that it provides emotional safety as well.
Yeah. And one important thing is what was not done to us. Like, tell me if I've hurt you,
Right.
Let me know. Being that person that your child can trust. I think we talked about this in the last episode. Well, like I said, this is this topic will never end. We might do episodes and episodes, but I think family is so important to us that we learn from each other, and maybe we'll learn from you. So if you have comments, or if you want to share a story with us, feel free to put it in the description note or in the comment section. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, and YouTube as well. So feel free to contact us, and maybe we could share a story of yours the next time from Homes of Hope. We look forward to seeing you the next time. Mother Manda.
Peace.